Mark, it's good to see you. I want to start by saying thanks, man, for bringing me back. You know, there's a few things that we didn't talk about, and I was kind of hoping maybe we could touch on. So today, hopefully we can. I want to tell you, though, before I get started, the interesting thing that I forgot to tell you, and this is kind of personal. I don't know if we're recording yet, but when I was in prison, I got a call from my grandma one time. And, you know, my grandma's old, and she got arthritis, her hands are messed up, heavy Italian accent, a little bit of a mustache, right? So she didn't call me. I called her, actually, from the prison. And we talked small talk about various things, the mail that came in, whatever. And then she says in her heavy Italian accent, "Tommy, I wish you were here because it's time for me to plant the tomatoes. But I can't plant the tomatoes because the arthritis is so bad. And it was so hot all summer, the dirt is just dry. I can't plant anything." And I asked her, I said, "Hey, Grandma, where were you going to plant the tomatoes?" She said, "Well, I was going to plant them all around the side of the garage. You know, get some shade, you get some sun. It's really good around the outside of the garage." I said, "Grandma, do me a favor. Don't break dirt around the garage. That's where all the bodies are buried. So, Grandma, please don't bury nothing there." And then we moved on to a different part of the conversation. So then I get a letter from her a couple days later. She says, "You won't believe what happened. I get off the phone with you, and 2 hours later, here comes a bunch of FBI guys. They got shovels and picks and a bulldozer, and they tear up all the dirt in the backyard, especially around the outside of the garage." So I called her back, and I said, "Hey, Grandma, I can't be there to dig your garden, but I did the best I could." So she got her tomatoes planted.
That's a great joke.
That's a joke. But either way. So look, the last time we talked a little bit about my criminal activity and the things I did, and for better or for worse, how it all ended up. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about today, a couple of things. One is that when I was young, people see Chicago often on the television, right? Just like New York, Philly, whatever. But Chicago's got its own unique flavor. And growing up as a young person in Chicago, it's really a matter of sun up to sundown. You're at your own whim to do what you want, but your parents have made it very clear. You got to be, when the sun goes down, you got to be home. So Chicago's a patchwork of neighborhoods. The Polish don't live with the Greeks don't live with the Lithuanians, the Chinese don't like the Thais. Everyone lives in their own little pocket, as you know. So I grew up in an all-Italian neighborhood just west of the Loop on the west side. And every neighborhood's got a police station, a fire station, a post office, whatever. And our police station was the Maxwell Street Station, which was located in a neighborhood referred to as Jewtown. Not because it was Jewish, but because everything they sold in that neighborhood came off the back of a truck. So there's no receipts, there's no return policy. It's just you pay cash, you barter the price down, hence Jewtown, and then you get your product and you go on. Well, right smack dab in the middle of this was the police station they used in Hill Street Blues. And then from the other side of the building, they then did Chicago PD. And it's ironic, you know, now as an adult to look back on those memories and think fondly of such a bad experience. But when I was a child, like from 8 to like 14, 15 years old, when you get caught doing something you're not supposed to do as a young person, they can't throw you in the jailhouse, right? Especially back then. It was a whole different animal. Now we got civil rights. And there was no ACLU back then. Or if there was, they didn't care about us. So what would happen is if the coppers put you in the back seat of the car, they usually wouldn't even handcuff you because you're 14 years old. But what they would do is once they get you out of the car, they'd cuff you, and they'd walk you down into the basement of that building, which has been on TV 1,000 times. On that Chicago PD show, they take guys down there and rough them up. Well, what they do for a juvenile is they handcuff you to the radiator. And so, because you can't pull that radiator out of the wall. It's got to weigh 300-400 pounds. And it's how you heat the building. So in the wintertime, you're sweating your balls off because you're stuck to the steam heat that's going to warm that entire area. And then when the patrolmen come down in the basement to bring, bad guys, criminals into the police station, they see you handcuffed there. They know you're a fuck up. And so they'd spit on you, maybe, smack you in the back of the head or whatever. And it was just kind of ironic I saw that not too long ago. I don't watch a lot of television, but I saw it on TV, that they're showing that very area. And I thought to myself, and I told the people in the room with me, I was like, I've been handcuffed to that radiator. They're like, "No, you haven't." I said, "I swear to God." And anybody that grew up on Taylor Street knows, or anywhere in Chicago, every police station has a radiator somewhere, sometimes in the lobby, sometimes in the basement. But it's legendary, and if you live to be 120 years old, you will never forget being handcuffed to that damn thing. Because it's just one of those life experiences, like the first time you ride a bike or the first time you drive a car, the first time you get handcuffed to that hot-ass radiator, you'll never forget. And you would hope it'd be a deterrent to crime, but it isn't. It's kind of like a badge of honor. If you haven't been handcuffed to there, then you're considered a sissy. So I kind of wanted to bring, I don't know why I wanted to bring that up, but I did. So something else I want to talk to you about, two things. One was, we talked a lot about the fact that I was involved with dirty cops in Chicago and their ties to organized crime and how that all played out. One of the things we talked about was wearing a wire. And when people see television shows or movies and a fellow wears a wire, it's always the same. They put the tapes up on the guy's chest. There's a guy outside with a white van. It's also protected and secure. That's not how it works. And so I wanted to tell you a story about something that happened when I was wearing my wire. I touched on it previously a little bit about the logistics of it all, where the FBI bumbled through cutting a hole in my boxers and taping it up underneath my nuts. And so this heavy clanky thing is like resting underneath my sack. As every time I take a step, it's like you can feel that fucking thing. It weighs a ton. It's right there. Well, one day I got called to a medical appointment in the jail. And in Cook County Jail, Division I is an old, actually it was a penitentiary before it was the county jail, and it's stacked tiers, one on top of the other, 5 stories tall. And between every two, like A wing, B wing, C wing, D wing, there are these stairwells that drop down. They call them the well. And so huge, heavy 400 or 500 pound metal doors with the old fashioned skeleton key that goes in there. And so a deputy sheriff would have to key you in, open the door, and put you in and then lock the door behind you. And then you'd have to make your way down the staircase to whatever floor you're supposed to be going to. Well, on the very basement, or bottom in the basement, they call that the boulevard. It runs the spine of Division I, from the yard where Muddy Waters and Johnny Cash played to the criminal courts building, 300-400 yards long. Busy, long, a lot of sheriffs, a lot of crooks. There's a lot going on. So on this particular day, I had been called for some medical appointment, but I still had the wire on me. And so you can't take it off. The FBI was real clear. I mean, that thing stays there. All you do is you unwrap it, you take the tapes out. As you remember, I was putting the tapes in a hollowed out book, Michener book, putting it on my bars on the outside of my cell so the fake sergeant could come and get them. Well, so I couldn't take the thing off to go to the medical trip, so I just had to do my thing. So the pants they give you are elastic waist cotton, cheapest pants you can get. We've all seen jail uniforms. And so I'm on the 4th floor. As I start making my way down, it feels loose. But I'm not really thinking too much about it because my mind's racing. I've got this wire on me. You've always got to be aware if somebody wants to pat you down, how you're going to handle that, whatever the case may be. And so as I was going from the 2nd floor to the 1st, I felt it slide down my pants leg. And this big chunk of fucking metal that I despised having on my body to begin with is now resting on the top of my foot as this deputy sheriff opens this big-ass door. Now I'm about to step off into a massive hallway, 200-300 people all together out there. If one person sees that wire coming out of my fucking pants leg, that's it. Adios, motherfucker. Because the staff's going to beat you to death because they think you're recording them. The other inmates are going to try to get you first. You're dead. You're dead meat. So I look down, and in panic, as that door opens, I'm sure my eyes were like saucers. And I saw this young deputy, and the only thing I thought of to say was, oh my God, I think I got food poisoning. I got to vomit. And I put my hand over my mouth. And so as he jumped back, I club-footed my leg in front of me, and the 2 steps it took to get across the hallway, I knew there was a wash sink at the base of the stairwell exit into the boulevard. And as I'm splashing the water in my face, I'm pretending to vomit. This guy's like looking over my shoulder like, what's the matter? Sergeant Moran, this fake sergeant that we had discussed earlier that was my handler, he's FBI handler inside the jail when he was 8 hours a day. He was working in the jail as a sergeant when he wasn't really.
Who you're collecting the tapes for?
That's who I'm recording the tapes for, organized crime guy. And so the FBI had dressed him up in a sergeant's uniform, went through the actual sheriff of Cook County. He's the only person that knew that this guy Moran was in there. And because he knew I was coming down to the bottom of the stairs, he comes rushing up when he sees me going to the mop sink. And I tell him, look, man, I'm puking. I got food poisoning. You got to get me to the hospital. So as he leans over and I see him next to me, I'm able to gather up the recorder, and I lifted my T-shirt and put it under and held it, and I'm pretending I was sick. And Moran, pretty much like a paparazzi guard would do as you put your arm out and you walk somebody, starts walking me down this long hallway to get me out of there as quickly as possible. But if a lieutenant or a captain, anyone higher than a sergeant had said, hey, come here, what's going on? I was cooked. And at that moment, I literally felt 20 years of my life advance in a 2-minute span. When you see someone wear a wire on television, you don't see the palpitations in your heart. You don't see how dry your mouth gets. You're paranoid. Am I talking too fast? Am I talking too slow? Am I making enough eye contact? Am I making too much? Everything about you is on hypersensitivity alert. And it was just really, really a mind fuck for the 6 months I wore that wire. And on that particular day, when that wire slid down my leg, I had the imaging in my mind of how I'd be beaten to death. One guy would have a big chunk of metal, like a lawnmower blade. Another guy might have a rock, whatever it might be. There's a lot of weapons in jail. And you'd be amazed at what they can find to bring up to their cells. And I literally ran the Rolodex of ways to die inside my mind as I was trying to gather myself. And that was one of the things that, we talk about almost in a carefree mindset when we talk about our past. But when you go back after you and I had spoken the first time, I started thinking about some of the things that we had discussed. I still, to this day, can't believe that I actually did what I did. I can't, because it's surreal. That was a misnomer that I wanted to clear up about the wearing of the wire type thing. But I also want to go back to my youth a little bit. Growing up in Chicago, again, every neighborhood's got its guys, and they're tight for whatever reason. Maybe they've grown up for a long time, played sports together, whatever. My block, where I grew up, we had a copper named Farina, Dennis Farina. And he was just a fucking patrolman. And then somehow someone saw him in something, and he wound up in one of the Steven Seagal movies. And handsome dude, silver hair, typical Chicago cop mustache. And next thing you know, this fucker's a fucking actor. He's gonna get shorties and a bunch of shit. Well, his two boys, Ronnie and Bobby Farina, were my age. They were my buddies. And so, going back to my youth in Chicago, the bars in Chicago don't close till like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. And on Saturdays, they close later than that. And a lot of them lock the front door and open the back door. So if you know where to go, you can fucking drink till noon. I mean, it's just the way the city works. Half the time you're drinking with off-duty coppers. So we were down on Rush Street, which is an area, the near north side, drinking. And at this point, I'd bought a building on northwest side. So I'm going home. Some of my buddies are going in that area. And it was like 5 Italian guys packed into one Grand Am, douched out in Dracar Noir cologne, the typical early 80s Italian look, right? Big poof back haircuts before I went bald. So we're rolling and we say we're hungry. Well, Chicago is notorious for Greasy Spoon diners and White Castle. And they call them sliders for a reason. They slide right through you. And so we decided we're gonna get sliders from White Castle. And as we're pulling up, we could see there was a fight going on in the dining area of this White Castle, and it would appear that one group was winning against another group. So we saw everyone bent over, and you see the elbows pumping in, and something's going on. But as we pulled up closer to the front door, one of the guys says, "Hey man, that's Ronnie's car." And I'm like, "No, I'm driving." I'm like, "No." And they said, "Yeah, that's his license plate. That's Ronnie Farina's fucking car." Well, I got Bobby Farina in the back seat. He leans forward, he says, "Yeah, that's my brother's car." So we all pile out of the car. One guy pops the back and gets a baseball bat, and we go rolling in. And these Puerto Ricans had Ronnie on the floor just beating the piss out of him. Now, I happen to know that Ronnie Farina had a big fucking mouth and slow hands. So, that's always a bad recipe when you're out and about at night, especially when you're in the neighborhood right on Western Avenue and Milwaukee Avenue where they cross with Armitage. That's like Imperial Gangsters, Latin Kings, there's Maniac Latin Disciples. There's all these Puerto Rican gangs, and Ronnie's an Italian with a big mouth. So they're beating his ass. He's all fucking bloody and pulped up. And I remember Jimmy Benangi, one of the guys from my neighborhood, picking up the main guy that was pounding him in the face, and he put him in a bear hug. And he looked around, and he saw the French fryer. And I remember it like it was yesterday, as he picked him up and leaned his body in and just dumped him into the French fryer. And he screamed for like a second. We got Ronnie up and got him in the backseat of the car, and we took him to Presbyterian St. Luke's Hospital up the street. But I never thought I'd see a guy get thrown in a French fryer. That was on, but I did. And that was the Chicago way. If you beat up one of ours, we're going to get one of yours. Just like if we fuck up one of your guys, we expect one of our guys to get it too.
How is the Chicago mob different than the New York mobsters?
Oh, the mobsters? Chicago mobsters. See, that was when we were teenagers, but mobsters are just the volume. New York City is loud. They beat a drum and play a trumpet. Hey, look what we're about to do. They do their stuff. Everyone seems to know. They deal drugs. You know, Chicago, you've never seen a Chicago gangster get caught for selling drugs. Never, because it's against the rules. You get caught selling drugs, they're going to fucking clip you. In New York City, Gotti got brought down not because of Sammy the Bull. Sammy the Bull wound up filling in the blanks, but his bodyguard, Ange Ruggiero, was fucking dealing heroin. And they had a mic in Ange's kitchen up in the light thing, and they recorded him selling drugs. And that's what opened the door to the entire fall of the Gambinos, was drugs. So that's probably the two biggest things. The Chicago guys are way more discreet. Like, you don't know who's running Chicago. Nobody knows because it's quiet.
But there's so many stories of the Chicago mob being so ruthless and.
Oh, we're violent.
Violent, yeah.
Yeah, we're violent. I mean, New York's violent too. You know, I mean, let's be honest. If three guys got guns and the guy that owes the money don't have a gun, it's not that hard to take advantage and get the upper hand. It's not that hard.
Maybe it's because Chicago's a smaller city. You don't expect it to be that way, but.
Perhaps. But here's the thing. When you see mob violence, these aren't random people that are getting violence put upon them. These are other crooks. If a guy's got a gambling habit and he knows that he owes the bookie and he thinks he can skirt the bookie by staying away from him, you know, the bookie answers to somebody and that guy answers to somebody. So it's going to come down the pike. Maybe you got this guy plus another 6 or 8 guys in that neighborhood, but you know, they're going to find you and they're going to make you pay. But it's not John and Karen Smith down the street that are getting bebop for their money. If they're business owners, they pay tax like everybody else. But you know, it's generally, you know, a pretty established way of life. Everyone knows what to do. But the guys that you see all chopped up or all just mangled or shot in the back of the head, those guys, 99% of the time, they knew it was coming. You know, they committed a foul act. They did something that they shouldn't have done. You know, it's very rare that the mob enacts violence against somebody accidentally. Like, you don't accidentally get the wrong guy because there's checking and then there's double checking and everyone wants to make sure that before this guy gets fucking tortured, they got the right guy. Because it's just, as silly as it sounds, there is a moral compass.
And innocent civilians don't really get mixed up in the violence.
No. Innocent civilians may come to us. They got a buddy or cousin or a coworker that knows somebody. And for whatever reason, they need $5,000, $10,000. Generally, the first time we'll take collateral if you've never borrowed from us. If you're gambling small, it doesn't matter. But if you're gambling really big, we'll take collateral, whatever that might be. That guy, Ron Hassey, that I collected for at the Board of Trade, we took his Ferrari for a while. He had a Ferrari Dino, kept it in the garage with a tarp over it. Nobody drove it to make sure that everything was legit before we started moving forward. But by and large, innocent people don't get tied into that unless they've come to us, they need money, and then it turns.
Like if you're a degenerate gambler and you just need some money, you go to the mob and say.
Jimmy Bucaleros, they found him floating in Lake Michigan right off the Oak Street Bridge. You know, he wanted money to supposedly open a restaurant, wound up buying a kilo of cocaine. You know, instead of selling it, he started snorting it and throwing these, you know, huge parties. And when it was time to pay the piper, he couldn't do it. He owed us the money. And you remember the story. I took him to his dad. His dad promised to pay the money. Then that night they found Jimmy floating in Lake Michigan. So I caught the weight on that one. So yeah, by and large, innocent people don't get caught up in that. But talking about innocent people, it's another thing I want to talk to you about just for a second. One of the reasons that I stopped cooperating with the feds, actually the reason, and my biggest problem with the conflicted feelings and values, because it's not easy. I mean, you interview a lot of people. It's not easy to sit in a courtroom and point at somebody you know. It's not. I mean, it turns your stomach. You vomit afterwards. It's horrible. But something I learned early, more so with state prosecutors and feds, but both, is if I'm tied down and I've got a lot of time coming in jail, and one of my friends and I had done something and they had found out about it, even if I'm the one that committed the act, but they've got me tied down, my friend's going to catch that case. Even though he wasn't the one that pulled the trigger or threw the guy off a bridge or broke his hands, whatever it might be. if they've already got me, they're going to take him because it's about convictions. It's not about justice. And when I watch guys get convicted of shit they didn't do, that was the big reason I didn't testify the second time around in the Jimmy Pellegrino case. A lot of cases, while I'm working with the prosecutors, they're asking me about every fucking case within a 40-mile radius of any place I step foot when I walked out of my house. They're asking me about all these cases. Some of them I have no idea. When Colombians kill Colombians, I don't know. I'm not in that world, right? But they asked me just in case I knew. But I was watching guys get convicted of shit that they didn't do. I mean, they might have been dirty on other stuff, but they're getting jammed up for stuff they didn't do because the guy that did it's already locked down. The other part of that really bothered me was the sentencing schematic in America. You know, in California, for example, bills are passed not as criminal justice bills. They're passed as part of a water reclamation bill that's stuffed on page 348, paragraph 2. It says, and if you're in the company of another felon, you get an extra 20 years. Well, the voters vote to get the water through the aqueduct system from Northern California to Southern California. They have no idea. They just added 20 years to Hector's sentence. That's how these laws get passed. And I happen to know a guy, went by Gypsy, his name's Peter Miller, went into a garage, took a set of tools. Garage door's open. In Pasadena, California, this is where it happened to this guy. He's walking down the street, another garage door's open, he takes a bike. He's walking down the street. What he doesn't know is that the corner building is being surveilled by detectives for drug activity. Well, they see this fucking dumbass in broad daylight take the toolbox and the bike. So, hey, come here, kid, put your hands on the hood of the car. They pat him down. You on probation or parole? Yeah, I'm on parole. For what? Burglary. Goes to court. Public defender doesn't remember his name when he goes to court. They offer him 23 years. He says, I'm not taking 23 years for a toolbox and a bike that the people got back that day. So I say, okay, go to trial. They give him what's called strikes. A strike for stealing the toolbox, for the bicycle, for having the toolbox, for having the bicycle. He gets a strike for somebody was in the backyard pruning their trees. By the time they were done with this kid, Peter Miller, he had 157 to life for a double burglary. True story. True story. And because it was an occupied burglary, he will never see a parole board. So taxpayer dollars in California, it's about $80,000 a year to house an inmate because of the pay that goes to the prison guards. This guy's going to sit in there until he's 60, 70, 80 years old at 80 grand a year. Fucked up system. And because of that tainted mindset at conviction over criminal justice, that's why your guy Gascon's in so much trouble, because he uses common sense application of the law. You know, he's just not a lock up every single person he can. It really is a skewed system that needs to be reviewed, but you can't run on a platform of I'll review criminal justice to make it right. You know, you got to run on a platform I'm going to lock up everyone that harms our sanctity in the neighborhoods. So that whole mindset became very apparent to me when I was cooperating with the feds. I mean, I hear the cases all the time. They laugh about convicting the wrong guy. They think it's funny. You know, they got him. And so that's one of the reasons why I decided not to testify again in the Jimmy Pellegrino murder, which resulted in Manning being sprung, which resulted in him suing. I get subpoenaed, I testify, and big jury award goes out. It's a crazy system, man.
So Steve Manning got convicted. He did some time. He got out again.
Steve Manning got convicted of murder in Illinois.
He was a Chicago cop.
Chicago homicide detective in Chicago on the west side of the city.
Very crooked.
Gets convicted of killing Jimmy Pellegrino, executing him, shooting him in the back of the head. He gets convicted in Kansas City, Missouri of kidnapping Tony Mamalito, cutting his throat, and kidnapping a couple big drug dealers in Kansas City. And then through the appellate process, he overturns the convictions in Missouri. And when he overturns the convictions in Missouri, they move him back to Illinois. He hires appellate attorneys. The judge in the appellate ruling said that the wife of the dead guy, Jimmy Pellegrino's wife, Joyce, was allowed to say things about Steve Manning to the jury that weren't factually based. They were just her opinion. And so it warranted a new trial. So he gets brought back in for the new trial. They come looking for me. You got to get back up there and check him again. I said, no, I'm not going to do it. So the tug of war went on. They shipped me to California, charged me with a fucking car theft, gave me $167 to life for that to try and put the screws to me. And I still said, no, fuck you. I'm not. The more they put the screws to me, the deeper my heels went in saying, fuck you, I'm not going to do it. So Manny gets sprung. He gets out. He goes from death row to freedom. He hires Lovey and Lovey. John Lovey's probably the smartest lawyer I've ever heard in my life. He represents Manning against the Department of Justice. They drag me in from where I'm at, out of witness protection, and they have me testify to the truthfulness of what all went on. And because that case was so fucking polluted, allowing the witnesses to have sex, take back whatever we want to the jails. I just do whatever the fuck we want to do. When you're a government witness and you're incarcerated, you can do whatever the fuck. I could beat up anybody in jail. I could beat up the fucking warden. You're not getting in trouble. So anyway, when all that came out in the trial, the jury awards the guy $6.6 million. So he goes from death row to a multimillionaire. But wait, the judge in the case, a guy named Kennelly, says, no, you know what? I'm pretty sure he killed fucking Jimmy, and I know he killed his dad. I know he killed these other people. So you know what, Manning? Fuck you. You can appeal to your fucking purple. I'm not giving you the money. I'm gonna kill the award. So while Manning's going through the appellate process trying to get this $6.6 million, I mean, he thinks he's hit the fucking lottery, right? I mean, he's on death row, and I'm quite sure he got bone in his ass, because that's what they do to those guys when they get there, just to break them, right? So he gets gang raped in his butt. Ex-cop? Oh, you know life was fucked for him. So anyway, it's so funny too, because life's got some irony. So anyway, so he gets free. He gets $6.5 million. The judge tells him, fuck you, I'm not letting you get the money. And so while he's waiting through the appellate process, this stupid prick decides to start snatching up guys that own strip clubs and shady businesses and shaking them down, making them sign the businesses, like limousine service, made them sign the whole business over to Steve. Or they would die. Like he would drag them in and make them watch another dude get put in the meat grinder that they had up on Clark Street. And they would literally grind a live dude up in the meat grinder and turn him into fucking Alpo. And this other guy's watching. The guy's like, fuck yeah, I'll sign over anything, man. Take my wife, my kids, whatever. And then they go ahead and kill him too. So Manning gets, because the feds were still all over Manning. They knew he wasn't going to sit still and behave. He wasn't going to go fuck
So in
away.
the end, he was free?
No. So they lock him right back up for extorting and torturing these guys. And so they bring him in on another federal racketeering case. And he goes down swinging. He blamed everybody. He blamed me. He blamed dirty cops. He blamed everybody for his demise. But the reality is they got him on videotape grinding motherfuckers into Alpo. And so now his happy ass sits underground at the ADX in Florence, Colorado. He will never fucking see sunlight. Like literally, shower comes up to your door. Door opens, they step out, they take their shower, they got 2 minutes. If they don't get out in 2 minutes, the electric shock starts. And they shock the shit out of those guys. And they got to step back in their cell. I mean, he doesn't see anybody. He doesn't get his mail. They put the mail up on TV screen. I know guys that made it out of ADX into regular prisons. That place is a motherfucker. And he'll never get out. I mean, he's probably, I know some violent motherfuckers. He is absolutely, positively the sickest, most violent guy I've ever seen in my life. He's not the toughest. Like, he won't win a fist fight. But if he gets a drop on you with his gun, he's the meanest fucker I know. And so now he will live out his days. Right now he's 74 years old. So he doesn't have a long time to live.
That's going to be a hard life.
Prison medical sucks.
That'll shorten your life.
Yeah, it'll shorten it. Oh, yeah. I don't know what the average lifespan is for inmates, but it's got to be way less than it is for John Q. Public.
Yeah.
As much as I paid a steep price when I refused to testify again in the Jimmy Pellegrino murder case, the feds getting involved in my life, going to California and making sure I stayed in jail on the car theft case, for all the side stuff that came with that, the peripheral headaches and problems and everything that entailed. The part that's the most troubling is that when guys get out of jail, society sees them as bad guys. They see them as criminals, and this guy deserves to stay in jail forever. I mean, we're inundated with shows on TV like Law and Order, Lock 'Em Up, Who Wants to Arrest a Midget. I prosecuted my dad, and I liked it. There's just so many shows on television about locking people up and keeping them there. But I'm going to tell you something. Some of those guys work really hard. They work really hard to turn their lives around. I got a guy that I was in prison with for over 30 years. We were together, off and on in different prisons as we worked through the system. And he got out and he had some T-shirts made. And it says, the most gangster shit I ever did was turn my life around. I just think that's so true, because it's hard to do. You have peer pressure in prison to be like other prisoners, a race riot that you didn't start, but you got to participate in. I mean, I know guys with their eyes missing, their ears cut off, huge scars from riots that some other guy started. But the saddest part of all of this is in the time that I've been free, and I've worked hard. I own my own businesses now. I'm a very successful businessman. Eight of the guys I've kept in touch with since we've gotten out have committed suicide, because it's that hard to indoctrinate back into society. And these are guys that worked hard to get out of jail. These are guys that turned their lives over to Christ. These are guys that went to every possible self-help group to understand why they committed the crimes they did and why they victimized the people they did. And they were earnestly remorseful. They went to the parole board 2, 3, 4 times before the parole board decided that they were finally fit to go home. They're out 6 months, 8 months, and they just can't do it. The pressures of society. Technology's passed them by. It's hard to make a living when you're an ex-convict. No one's going to hire you. But 8 people that I've stayed in touch with, and I wouldn't stay in touch with them if they were using dope or acting like an idiot. I stayed in touch with guys who were working hard, they've gotten back with their families or started a new family. But 8 of them have taken their own lives. So for all the people that think the guys come out of prison and they just got bullshit on their mind, they want to commit more crimes and victimize people, no. 90% of the people that come out of prison want to go back into society and return as a better man than when they went in. But I just want the world to know that the pressure in that regard is enormous. So if somebody winds up in your neighborhood and they used to be in prison and they're going to work every day and they're paying their bills, just talk to them. Treat them like a human being, because it's a tough road to hoe. It really is.
Did you know Frank Collada?
Yeah, I know who Frank is.
Yeah, I interviewed Frank as well.
Yeah, I watch. Dude, I watched almost all your videos.
Oh, you have?
Look, I have never seen one of these programs ever in my life. It's just not my thing.
Yeah.
Like, I got this fucking 80 or 85-inch TV in my loft. I never turned this thing on. The only time I turn it on is if the Bears are playing.
Same with me. It's the only time my TV is warm.
Yeah, I never turned the TV on. So I'm not a video guy. And so, but I've watched, because I got to know you. I told you last time I was here, you're a good guy. And I'm not saying that to smooze you, but you're just a good dude, man. You're a good guy. And,
I'm honest.
You get the disenfranchised heard. Maybe not on the level that we would all like to see, but at least they're heard. And you know what? It shows people that guy stumbling down the street is a human being. There's humanity there. That's not just a shell going past. That's a human being there, and they have a story, whatever the story may be. And you know what? It's made me a lot kinder. I don't give money to homeless people. I just don't. But what I will do is, if I'm in a supermarket or something and they're out there begging, I will go get, if there's some pre-made food that's edible now, I will get them a nice sandwich and some side dishes or whatever, silverware, whatever the case may be, and I'll bring that out to them. And I've noticed that I've really stepped that up. And my girl's named Kai, and she's like, "Why are you doing this? You fucking hate homeless people." I said, "You know what? Because when I watch these videos of some of these people, some of them didn't set out to be this way. They don't intend to be, the outcasts. Circumstances put them there. So I could have easily been there if not for my wherewithal and my never say die mentality."
Yeah, and your brain chemistry maybe made you a survivor instead of somebody who got sucked into that.
Oh.
Some people take a drink of alcohol and it's all over. And other people can do cocaine and it doesn't kill them.
Want to hear something funny about that? My mom was a fucking horrible alcoholic. My mom would wake up in the morning, and before she would leave the bed, while she was still in the bed, in her end table, and we had a nice house. I mean, in those days, we had all the trappings that most people didn't. My mom would open her nightstand, and she drank Seagram's VO. And she always, for some reason, had a glass for it. She'd pour it in the glass. She'd light a cigarette, and drink. See, I mean, she hasn't brushed her teeth, washed her face, nothing. She's drinking this whiskey and smoking. She'll smoke 3 or 4 cigarettes and drink 2 or 3 glasses of whiskey just to start the day. And it went on all day, every day. And you know what? I don't drink. I've never fucking smoked a cigarette.
Of the people you knew in that underworld of crime and corrupt cops and all that, like how many of them were habitual drinkers or drug users?
Well, drugs are forbidden.
Drugs are like out of the picture.
You get caught fucking with drugs in Chicago, you're through.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, instantaneous. If someone's got proof that you're doing that, adios. But a lot of them drank. The cops drink a lot. Mob guys know not to drink too much because the bosses always see who's drunk and if they run their mouth. Quickest way to get clipped is get drunk, run your mouth in front of a boss because someone's going to hear about it. And so, you know, that never ends well.
You were telling that story earlier about the young guy giving you a hard time. I don't know if it's going to be in this video. It might have been off camera. But Frank Collada, the one time I interviewed him, he lived in Vegas at the time, but he was from Chicago. Mm-hmm. He was a hitman in Chicago.
Yeah, I know exactly who he is.
So after we did the interview, we were hanging out, and I had to go to Bank of America to get some money for him, and for the interview. And he's driving his SUV, and some young guy was giving him a hard time when he parked his car. And here's Frank, who's probably, I don't know what age he was, probably 75, 80, something like that, but old dude. This kid is giving him a hard time, and Frank's just like would not back down, which you could see, like if this was going to get ugly, the kid was going to be dead.
Yeah.
It was just very clear to me. It's like the kid had no idea who he was fucking with.
Yeah. We've been together in places where someone's like bumped into me without saying excuse me. And, you know, I'm not patting my own back or saying I'm a tough guy, but you're going to fucking say excuse me before it's over. You will. And otherwise it's going to end ugly. It's just a matter of if someone bumps into you without saying excuse me, you won't have to say something. I'll say something to the guy. But
some people are fighters.
You know, but yeah, I was never into drugs, never into drinking. It's not my thing. I like money, and I like good-looking girls. I'm not going to lie. That's my weakness. But now, I mean, I've settled in with Kai, and especially now she's gotten sick. You know, I think I told you, took a lump out of her breast. Mm. Yeah, I mean, she's going through it, like hard.
Cancer's scary.
Can I tell you a real quick story? Just super short before we get going. We'll do some more. I'm going to get emotional telling you the story because I cry. I really love Kai a lot. Something happened. I almost died a couple years ago. I got real close to dying. Like it was close. And Kai found me laying on the floor, unconscious. And she said I was whimpering and calling for my mom. She got me up, got me to the car, got me to the hospital. Doctors had to operate on me to fix me. And after surgery, my Dr. Henneke said, hey man, 2 minutes later you would have died. You were hemorrhaging so bad on the inside, you would have died. It was her. You know, she's 5'3", 120 pounds. I mean, an unconscious body is hard to carry. So we're in a restaurant 3-4 weeks ago, and she's crying. You know, if I lose a breast, you're not going to love me anymore. I'm going to be damaged. You're not going to find me attractive. And she was really hurting. So I was trying to reassure her, but there's nothing I'm saying that was going to resonate with her on that level. I mean, it's something internal that, I mean, as men, I can't even imagine, because, you know, your breasts show, right? I'm trying to understand, but it's hard to understand. So we get done with dinner. There's an ice cream place down the street, and she likes to get ice cream after dinner. And as we walk out, I see a tattoo place. Where I live is a big city, right? A lot of stuff going on. I see a tattoo place. Now, I don't have tattoos. Chicago mob, no Chicago mob guys have tattoos. And as we're walking to the ice cream place, I tell her, I say, hey, I don't think this ice cream place is going to have a bathroom. Let me see if I can piss in this guy's joint. I forgot to piss when we left the restaurant. I said, you know, here's some money. Just give me a spoonful of pistachio ice cream, and I'll be right there. She's like, okay. So while she goes to the thing, I walk in this tattoo place, and the first guy I see, just sitting there working with some equipment, I say, hey, come here, punk. I said, I want you to do a tattoo on me. Right? I don't have time to fill out no forms. Got a lot of cash in my pocket. Just do the fucking tattoo. And he's like, but I got people coming in. I'm saying, like, you don't understand. I pulled my thing up. I showed him my gun. I said, you're going to do a tattoo right now. I'm going to pay you, but you're going to do it right now. And he's like, but you got to fill these waivers. And I said, I ain't got to do shit. I said, I want a K on my wedding ring finger right now. He's like, okay. He's kind of afraid that I was heated up and, you know, I was being a little forceful with him. I'm like, I want a K. He goes, well, what kind of K you want? I said, I don't give a fuck. Just a cursive K. Make a K. Put it on my finger. So when I don't come to the ice cream place, the guy's like, where is he? So she wanders back to where I was using the bathroom. And she walked into the tattoo place, and she sees me sitting there, and they're working on my hand. And when she came over to see what they're doing, she literally dropped the ice cream, and she just started crying hysterically hard. So the two women that were also working in there came over, and they hugged her, put their arms around her, and you know, I mean, she was crying hard. And she looked down, and she saw, I put her initial on my ring finger to let her know that I'm not going to go anywhere. And I'll tell you what, it was just one of those moments. It's one of those moments, no matter what you've been through in life, when your girl realizes you're not going anywhere, it made her, she came out of the depression she was in, behind the losing part of all of her breasts. And it was just one of those times where I wasn't a gangster. I wasn't a tough guy. I was just a good fiance.
You're a good guy as well as a bad guy.
I can be a good guy sometimes.
People are going to be crying at the end of that.
Were you taping this?
Yeah.
Oh, were you really?
Yeah, all of it, the whole thing.
Fuck it. Fuck it.
Women are going to love it, man. They'll be.
I had no idea. Dude, I swear to God.
You'll be the favorite mobster on my channel after that.
I did not know you were taping that.
Yeah, I was taping it.
Yeah.
All right, Tommy. Thank you so much. You're always fascinating.
Oh, thank you, man. You're a good dude.
So are you.